Miss Johnson, thank you so much for sharing that with me. I'm sorry you're having to go through that, but I want you to know that I'm here to help. So now I want to go over a couple of topics with you. I want to first talk to you a little bit about the timing and the timeline of your pregnancy. Then I want to talk to you about your use of Seraphone as well as how your pregnancy went generally and how your health was. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about the impact that this has all had on your life. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so just to begin, I was wondering if you could talk to me a little bit about your decision to get pregnant.
We decided that we wanted to have children in early 2022. We were not really trying then. It took a little while until, we decided that we were ready. So I think it was basically just 2 or 3 weeks before I saw Dr. Davis. So it would have been somewhere in like May or June that we decided that we were going to try.
Okay,
Obviously, it didn't happen in July, and I ended up going to see Dr. Davis on July 3rd.
right. And then could you just go over the timeline from start to finish for me? So from the dates that you remember.
So I would say, we again, I don't know an exact date, but it was May, June when we started trying. Then I was told by just a family friend that it would be a good idea to see a gynecologist,
Right.
even though I wasn't pregnant yet. So I got recommendations for Dr. Davis, set up an appointment. The first one she had available was early July. So that's what we picked.
Right.
I went with my husband. He was there with me. We went, talked to her, had the appointment. So all of that, gave me the prescription. And I found out, 3 weeks later
Mhm.
that I was pregnant. So it would have been, beginning of August to
Right. So
mid-August.
end of
I
July,
don't know.
beginning of August.
Yeah. I don't know a specific date. I can probably go back and check the day that I took the pregnancy test, but it would have been around then.
Okay, perfect. And then when were the twins born again?
They're actually triplets.
Triplets,
Um,
apologies. They were born in which month?
January 6th, 2023.
January 2023. Perfect. Thank you. And when did you find out, or do you remember when you found out? Or could you tell me about when you found out you were pregnant with multiples, I guess is what I'm asking.
It was a few months later, so I
Mhm.
guess it would have been again, that's something I can check with the records, but I remember that my husband and I went for an ultrasound,
Okay.
and at the time I thought it was just going to be one baby, and then they looked in the ultrasound and they said that there were three. So they informed us. I think it would have been around um, November that I found out. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And you were obviously taking Seraphone. How did you feel, or could you tell me about how you felt about taking Seraphone at the time?
It was fine. I mean, with any hormonal pill, you always feel a little bit, weird about taking it, especially in the
Yeah.
beginning. They obviously just make you feel weird. That's I didn't have any particular like bad symptoms, I would say. I've had worse symptoms being on birth control
Yeah.
than this drug. I would say it was fine. I wasn't on it for a very long time, right? Because she gave it to me in July. And then in August, I was already pregnant. So at that point, I stopped it.
Right. And so just to clarify, did you begin taking your Seraphone right after it was prescribed at the beginning of July?
Yeah. So my husband and I went to the pharmacy that's like right by her office, Dr. Davis'
Right.
office. We got the prescription. And I think the first dose was like the day after, the morning after.
Oh, okay. Okay. And you took it as recommended, as it was prescribed throughout your pregnancy?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. And then apologies, just lost my train of thought there. So you were on it for about 3 weeks in total, if I'm understanding you correctly, and then you stopped taking it when you found out you were pregnant?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's how it works. So from my understanding, once you find out that you're pregnant, you stop it because the whole point of the pill is to help you get pregnant. Once you're pregnant, it doesn't really have
Right.
any value anymore.
Right, that makes sense. So what I'm hearing is that you started trying to get pregnant sort of May, June of 2022. You guys were having some trouble. You didn't fall pregnant right away, and somebody suggested you go to a gynecologist. You attended the gynecologist early July of 2022, and she prescribed you Seraphone at that visit, correct? Right?
Yes.
And then you began taking the drug right away, right after it was prescribed, or as soon as you were able to. And then you found out that you were pregnant with the multiples in about November of 2022, and they were born in January of 2023. Is that correct?
Yes, that's all correct.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that with me. And so just I want to now talk about your use of the drug and just how your pregnancy went generally. So could you talk about how the doctor prescribed it to you? Did she tell you about the drug? Did she give you any side effects, make you aware of anything you should know about it when she prescribed it to you?
No, not at all. She just kind of said that this is a fertility drug that's become very popular and she's seen a lot of success with it. The only thing she did was, wrote the prescription, said it was popular, and then gave me the prescription and said that I could get it at basically any pharmacy, and that my insurance would probably not cover it. But she didn't tell me anything else at all. She just said it's a fertility drug.
Okay. And how did you feel? I know you talked a little bit about your symptoms, so I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about how you felt while you were taking Seraphone.
Honestly, it was fine. I mean, at that point, like I don't really know if right afterwards I got pregnant pretty quickly, so it could have just been symptoms of like, get being pregnant. But I felt okay, kind of bloated, kind of nauseous. Again, I have no clue. That could be the pregnancy. But it just kind of like hormonal, emotional, didn't feel great. But I was willing to do it. I was willing to take it, just so because I wanted to have children. So I continued with it.
Right. And how did you feel during your pregnancy? Like, where did you find yourself to be particularly ill? Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Honestly, no issues. I went to my family doctor a few times just with like colds and stuff. It wasn't a particularly hard pregnancy. I mean, I was carrying triplets, so it was a little bit
Of course.
harder than normal. But everything went great. All the ultrasounds were fine until they were born. Nobody said anything about them being triplets and how that would be an issue at all.
Right.
They did tell me that they might be born a little bit early, but I guess that's very like normal for triplets.
Right.
But yeah, everything was fine. Nothing noteworthy, I would say.
Right. And you mentioned just briefly that they told you it might be triplets. Did anybody ever mention, or could you tell me if anybody ever told you anything else about Seraphone during your pregnancy or during labor?
No, nobody
No.
mentioned anything, and Dr. Davis never said anything either. She just, at some point, I think she just asked me, "Oh, you stopped taking it, right? Now that
Right.
you're pregnant." Nothing else was said.
Right. And when you were first prescribed the Seraphone, did you ask her about any side effects?
No, I did not.
No, you didn't ask her? No problem. And did you know anybody else who had ever used Seraphone, or did any of your friends ever take it to your knowledge?
Not that I know of. I mean, I didn't. I'm more of a private person, I would say. So I didn't go around telling everybody that, we were trying and all of that. Like, so I didn't feel comfortable, especially because I was like, I didn't even know if we were gonna get pregnant. I didn't want to put it out there. But I did speak to people afterwards, which is when I started to find out about the issues with the drug.
Right. And was there anybody specific that you talked to afterwards who mentioned the issues with the drugs?
I remember I talked to my best friend and she said that she had heard of it, that's being heavily advertised right now, and that, she is trying to get pregnant as well. And she was saying that it's just become so popular, it's become one of those drugs right now.
Right.
So I talked to her, and later on I talked to my mom about it, but she didn't have a lot of information. She didn't know what it was.
Okay.
She was surprised that there are even fertility drugs right now out there. Yeah, those are the only two people.
Okay. And you mentioned that this drug probably, or Dr. Davies mentioned this drug probably wasn't going to be covered by insurance. Did you pay out of pocket for the drug?
No, my husband's insurance covered it. He
Oh,
has
okay.
full.
It did cover it. Okay. Okay. Thank you for sharing that all with me. So from what I'm hearing from you, it sounds like you were never really warned that there'd be any potential side effects. You didn't really have any idea that there'd be any issue at all with this drug. You like generally felt okay while you took it. There was no harsh side effects or nothing that made you concerned about the pregnancy. And your pregnancy sounds like it was generally okay up until you gave birth. I'm sorry that you're going all through this. I can only imagine how traumatizing this all is for you. And
Thank
this last topic I want to talk to you about might be the hardest, and so I appreciate any information that you can share with me, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the impact that this has all had on your life. So I was wondering if you could tell me about how labor went.
My labor was pretty bad. So my husband and I went to my water broke. We went on January 6th. He drove me to the hospital. It was very long. I think it was about 17 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very difficult. I expected that. Obviously, pregnancy and labor is not easy. The children were born. That part was also very difficult. Again, that was expected, having triplets. I thought it was fine, but as soon as the children one by one were born, I realized that something was wrong. They were being taken away by the nurses pretty quickly to be checked out. And I kept asking, like, what's wrong? What's wrong? They weren't saying anything to me. I could see them doing, all kinds of stuff. I don't know what they were doing, but they were just taking them away from us. So they took them away, and then they brought them back to us. And then at that point, we hugged them or whatever. And then a few hours afterwards, they start talking about all the issues that they might have.
Right. And so could you tell me about a little bit more about that time when you were told about all these issues? Like how much did they tell you? What did you know at that point?
Uh, a lot, but also very little. They kept talking about all the different things that could happen that we wouldn't know. So they said they could have mobility issues. We wouldn't know about them. They could not respond to auditory stimulation. They could not talk. They could not speak. Like they could not hear. There are all these things that they were like, we won't know. They could develop, they could have autism. They can have down, like there were all these different issues that they were like, this could happen, that could happen. It was just a lot. But at the same time, very little was said about what they knew.
Right.
They said that they have to run tests. So we were at the hospital for another week or 2 weeks after that. And they run all sorts of tests on the triplets.
Right. And how, or could you tell me about when you found out that it was the Seraphone that had caused all these issues? Or when you became suspicious, I guess, that maybe it was the Seraphone?
Yeah, so I didn't think about it at all. And I was so caught up with the hospital stuff. And then afterwards we came home. It was just so difficult to adapt to this new life. I had to stop working. In February, sometime in February, I saw I saw like a news article or something like that that was talking about their phone. So it caught my interest because I'd taken it, and it just kind of was a rabbit hole of just like me going on different websites and news articles, and just even research, that shows that there are risks with it, and such huge risks. One of them obviously being the possibility of conceiving multiple fetuses.
Right.
And so that kind of rang a bell for me. I was just like, okay, this can't be a coincidence. I start taking this drug, then I have, triplets. So that's kind of how it started off.
Right. Thank you for sharing all that. And how are the triplets doing today? How are their life or their quality of life today?
I mean, they all have cerebral palsy. Lily has trouble with her hearing, and she doesn't respond to any auditory stimulation. The doctor say it's unlikely that she will ever respond at this point. Her eyesight is also affected, and she shows early signs that she may be blind or half blind. Sam also has problems with his breathing and digestion because his lungs and his intestinal tract wasn't fully developed. So he had a hard time breastfeeding. He has a hard time breathing in general. It's a big issue because, he doesn't really understand that he has a hard time. So a lot of the times he doesn't know to catch his breath and, stop doing things. And he wants to run around, do all these exercises kids, little kids want to do right now. I mean, he's going to be, 8 months. But he can't do any of that. So yeah, I mean, they still don't know the full extent of it. They're still running tests, but I would say quality of life is definitely affected for them and also for my husband and I. I had to stop working completely to take care of the
Okay.
children. And we're like in significant debt at this point with all the physiotherapy and all the different stuff that's not covered by OHIP that we have to go through.
Absolutely. And so I just have a couple more questions, if that's all right with you, on this topic. So you mentioned that a few hours after they were born, they had gone through some tests, had been seen by various doctors and nurses. Did anybody ever ask you about Seraphone at that point?
I don't think so. I think it was just in my file that I was like I had taken medication
Okay.
at some point, but nobody really addressed it. And so that's maybe why it didn't raise any flags for me because nobody
Right.
was interested in it, right? They
Right.
always ask you, what medication are you on right now? Right?
Right. Right.
But I don't think it came up. No.
Mhm. Right. And did you ever approach Dr. Davies afterwards? Did you ever go to talk to her about all of this?
No,
Okay.
I didn't.
So you've had no contact with Dr. Davies since the triplets were born, at least?
Well, she was there for the labor and she was
She was
there.
present for the birth of the triplets, but then you haven't seen her afterwards.
No, she
Okay.
she she was around. She works at that hospital, so she was around, the 2 weeks that they were doing tests coming up and like checking on us and stuff. But
Mhm.
after that, after I didn't think it was personally a good idea for me to go and confront her or make any. I wanted to, see what my options are, make sure I have something. I don't want to just go to her and make accusations and stuff. That's
Absolutely.
not my intention. So I thought it's better to just stay separate until I know what's going on.
Absolutely. And that was a good decision. And I just have one final question, and this might be a difficult one, but could you give me like just sort of a numerical estimate of how much debt you have, how much cost you spent on the triplets? Is there a number that you have in your head right now?
I mean, I know that my husband has taken around 300,000 from the
Okay.
bank. And we've been just using that. It's almost done.
Okay.
That is not considering like our credit card debt that we're in right
Absolutely.
now and stuff like that. So I would say it's around like the 400 probably
Okay.
mark.
And that's good.
And
Just an estimate right now is perfect, just so I
yeah.
have an idea. All right. So thank you for sharing all this with me. And it sounds like this has deeply impacted your life. It sounds like your labor was very difficult, very traumatic. The triplets have had an incredibly difficult time early in their life and continue to date. And it sounds like you and your husband have taken a lot on in order to help the triplets. Is there anything else you want to tell me about at this point? Is there anything else you think I should know?
Um, I don't think so. I just, if you guys like require any documents or anything, I can send them over to you
Okay.
guys, contact information and stuff like that. I'm sure like the medical records can do a better job at explaining everything, especially the medical stuff that I don't really understand. So I can, send those along to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time today, Miss Johnson. If you have any questions coming up, please don't hesitate to reach out to our office and we'll meet again soon.
Okay, thank you so much.